Ahoy, hoy, heavy tribe. It's your girl Ez, and I have the extreme pleasure today to bring you the ever so lovely and talented Andrew McMahon. Now, you may know him from the bands Something Corporate or Jack's Mannequin, but in recent times, he's been doing the solo thing under the moniker Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. Here's a little taste of his most recent single, Lying on the Hood of Your Car. Hey, Andrew, how you doing?
Hey there. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Is it good morning, good evening, good afternoon for you?
It's
What
good
is it over there?
afternoon. Yeah, we're just a couple hours into the post noon over here. So yeah. How about you? Is it early over there?
Yeah, 8:30 Saturday morning.
Oh boy, thanks for seeing me at such an early hour.
Oh, no, it's my absolute pleasure. But anyway, how's life?
Life is really good. It's been a last year was a crazy year, just sort of getting new music off the ground. There's a lot of changes in my world, new kind of a whole new team, new manager, new agent, new just a whole I've just rebuilt my whole universe, and it's exciting now. Like the year started with like a couple of cool trips, and now I'm really getting ready to dig in and begin the touring and all the craziness of putting new songs out.
Yeah, because you've dropped a couple of new songs in recent months. So is there a full length album on the way?
Yeah, so March 31st, we'll release the whole record. At which point, probably about half of it will already be in the world. But yeah, we're gearing up for sort of festival season and a bunch of summer tours, and obviously coming out to hang out in Australia for a few days. And yeah, and that's kind of the big start to the year is going to be with you guys.
Yeah, nice. We're looking forward to it. And so you're going to be here in sometime in the next 2 weeks. How long has it been between Aussie visits for you?
So my last trip out was in 2018. My dear friend Alan Stone married an Aussie, and she they had their wedding in Melbourne, and so I just booked shows and brought my. It was the first time I got to bring my wife and my daughter to Australia, which was so cool. They did all the tour dates with me. We went to the wedding and did a little vacation. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I would have been back sooner, but it's been kind of been a wild ride the last few years. So I'm eager to be back with y'all.
So you're doing 3 shows: Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and you're doing them all in a row, which sounds kind of hectic. Are you going to get the gigging out of the way and then chill in Australia for a bit, or are you zipping off to the next spot on the schedule sort of straight away?
I wish I was actually. It's crazy. I mean, originally the plan was I was going to come out and do the vacation on the front end of the trip, and then we booked this kind of wild deal where I'm playing with the band at the NHL All Star Game. So it's the National Hockey League. So I'm going to Miami and then flying right to Australia. I have the day. I get in at 6 in the morning, have the day off, and then I've got the 3 shows, and then have to be back home because my daughter turns 9 the next day. So I won't get as much time to hang, but my hope really is that this first few shows is kind of the beginning of coming back more regularly and getting to bring the band back, hopefully. And so that's the intention, because I definitely want to spend some real time out there.
Yeah. Oh my God, that sounds like a whirlwind. You're not even going to remember being here.
Yeah, I'm super curious what my state is going to be at that first show in Brisbane. You know what I mean? Like I will definitely sedate myself on the flight over from Miami. That's going to be like 30 plus hours of travel, but I'll be ready for it. I'm a road warrior. I'm used to it at this point.
And then you're going to get home and you'll be like, was I in Australia, I think, or was that a dream? Or
I think you're right. Which is kind of, honestly, that's sort of the beauty of playing on the other side of the world for me sometimes, is that weird intersection of sort of sleeplessness or jet lag or whatever. Once it sort of ends up on a stage and you've got some adrenaline and you're in that space, it can create some really dreamy, magical, meditative moments. So I'm counting on that being the case, and not like falling asleep at the piano during the show. I don't think that'll happen.
That's actually a really cool way of looking at it. So, for the shows that you're playing, you're going to be giving us a mixed bag of tunes from the catalogs of Something Corporate, Jack's Mannequin, and then obviously your solo work. So, it sounds like it's going to be something to please everybody this time around.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, I think the beauty of sort of playing under my own name now is that all these songs that I've written over the years kind of can live in one space together. So yeah, I'm. We just got off the road. I spent the summer out with Chris from Dashboard Confessional. We did a co-headliner tour this summer, and there was really, I think that nostalgia wave is breaking pretty heavy here in the States for that era of our of our lives on tour, and I'm not sure if it's the same over there or not, but I've been kind of enjoying more so than I'd say I have in most of my career, giving the audience and myself the sort of freedom to relive some of these memories and some of these old songs, and hopefully make some new memories around them in rooms together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the nostalgia wave is definitely hit over here as well. And I don't know if it's just, there's a certain generation of us getting to a particular age. And so we're like doing that full circle look back. I'm not sure what it is, but that sort of leads me into a question I had for you, because you turned 40 recently. My 40th is around the corner as well, so I'm of the same gen. But so I hear that was a pretty special event, particularly because there was like something of a mini reformation of Something Corporate for that night. Tell me about the bash, the birthday bash.
It was one of these moments where, I mean, even when Something Corporate reunited for, I think we did a 10-year anniversary run where I think we maybe played 8 or 10 shows. It was a very short run. And that was without William, right? Because William had left the band when we were, when we were on the second record. And so we sort of reformed in the last iteration that we had traveled in for the reunion, just because it was easier, especially because Bobby, who was traveling in Jack's Mannequin, was already, was in the second iteration of Something Corporate. And so it was kind of cool. This 40th birthday, just got everybody back on stage together, so it was sort of the original lineup. And I think because I didn't bill it, we didn't sell tickets as a Something Corporate show. It was my birthday party and the end of the tour that I'd been on all summer. And so there was no pressure. It was just kind of like, hey guys, like, learn these songs, show up to sound check. I'll jump in. I'll make sure I know them too, and then we'll practice at sound check and make sure that everything sounds good. And let's give the fans a surprise, And in that context, it was just so low stress and low pressure. And I think because it was my birthday party, and it was like it was really basically nearly everybody I'd ever shared a stage with was on stage with me that night, and it really did feel like just about the best way you could celebrate such a major milestone. It had also been kind of the 20-year anniversary, really, of Something Corporate's first album coming out was in 2022. So there was a lot to celebrate, and it got us excited to do it again. We're gonna play the We Were Young festival in Vegas. And there's just a lot of good vibes and good energy between the band as a whole. We've stayed friends over all these years, which I think is really kind of wonderful and beautiful, that we kind of ended the band before it ended our relationships. We sort of signed off when it started getting a little tricky to manage our relationships. And I think as a result, we were able to save, not just our friendships, but I also think maintained a legacy of the band by not kind of continuing to make music when we weren't really getting along as good at that moment.
I think a lot of bands don't. Well, it's probably something that they don't recognize as they're heading into it until it's too late, I think. And but that's really nice. That was a comment I was going to make, is that it seems like throughout your musical career, which is a relatively lengthy one at this point in time, that, yeah, you've maintained a really good balance between the old projects and the new.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what I've learned over the years is, one, I think I draw a lot of inspiration from, finding myself in sort of new scenarios, right? And getting myself uncomfortable and challenging myself to write and record and produce music in different ways. It's what makes it's what makes me sort of tick, is chasing that down. And sometimes I can do that within the context of a project, and sometimes I have to kind of break with the project and do it all together and start something over. It's not really like the intention. It's not how I go into it. It's just sort of like a gut feeling, and then things just sort of follow that. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like I've been really fortunate that all of those things, it's not always the easiest, to wind a project down and start something new. It can be challenging, but I do think that at least in my case, I've been really lucky that it's always led to a new and exciting chapter. And there's always, I think there is this connection with my past bandmates, and that we've managed to stay friends despite moving into different territory. And I think relationships are the most important thing. If you're, I know, I understand why it's hard for bands, or why people choose to stay in hard relationships, because, well, you have fans and you have a career and you've built something. I think for me, that was just always, I never really related to that. I always, I don't want to be in hard relationships. I'll work through hard relationships if there's work to be done. But as it relates to creativity, you want to create with people that are excited to be in a room together. It's so important to making good art, I think.
Man, I couldn't agree more. I always liken music and making music with other people and being in bands to being in a marriage or a relationship. It's not always easy. There is work to be done, but it shouldn't be so hard that it brings about misery. That's the complete opposite of what you're going for, right? So yeah,
Totally.
it's very much the same in music. What can your fans expect from the newest stuff that you've got coming out?
Well, I mean, it's always so hard to tell. It's like you almost don't really know what a record is until it's made its way into the world, and then everybody tells you what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
like I think, I think there's a real cohesive sense to the album. I think that is the benefit of having, I think, I had a lot of songs around leading up to the record. Sometimes, sometimes I do this where I'm like jumping around and working with different writers and different producers, and I'm sort of piecing it all together in real time, and then the record comes out, right? In this case, because I had started working on music ahead of the pandemic, and then took a break to write the memoir, and just decided, well, if we're going to be locked down, I need that energy of being in a room with people to create. Like there's something magical about that. But so I had these handful of songs that I was still excited about, that hadn't seen the light of day. And then I started working, and I really was able to sort of pull a bunch of songs together and then start producing the record, which is kind of how it's how I used to make records. It's like how we started making records. You'd have this catalog of tunes, and then you'd go find a producer and you'd make them, right? And so because I had that going into this, it really made the production like the most fun it could possibly be, right? And I needed that after years of kind of like being in a very solitary process of writing a book and sort of missing the road and all those things. And so Tommy English and Jeremy Hatcher, who produced this record with me, who are like dear friends, and are attached to some of the coolest music, Borns and K-Flay and Harry Styles, and like, I mean, it's like this huge swath of artists that they work with. And we just went in and like just partied on these songs. And so the record is, I mean, I think it's lyrically, I think it's very, I mean, I think it's weighty in the sense that I knew I was coming up on this anniversary of having spent more than half my life on tour this year, at my 40th birthday. And I wanted the songs to say something about what it means to be where I am now. I wanted the songs to say something about the journey, but also where I'm going. So there is a bit of an existential bent, I think, to some of the music, the themes, but sonically it's so fun and so adventurous, because I had these brilliant producer engineers and a boatload of like radical keyboards, and a room where the drums were always ready to go, and we just kind of ran around the room like like kids playing with toys, like it was like, oh man, what if we put like this bass sound on there, and then we just run over, and a lot of songs got produced 3 or 4 times, and we built up a language and then went back and circled back on these tunes. But the bulk of the record was cut in about 2.5 months, and it was just these like frenzied fun sessions where we were just like just the best version of making something. We were just with your buddies and having a blast.
Sounds like a time. And it must have been great after, yeah, like you said, the isolation of lockdown. Like that must have just felt so cathartic and just joyous.
It did. Yeah, when it's also just like when you have really great collaborators who know you, who that are. Jeremy had played in my band. Tommy had to some extent grown up listening to some of my music. There are these guys that know where I come from. You know what I mean? And so I think it was important to them to help me make music that honored that, and also push me forward and continue to create the next piece of the puzzle. But they're so talented that it's like you could just basically be like, I want this sound, and you could just get it, and I'm a frustrated sort of engineer because I'm the shittiest engineer on earth, right? So like being in rooms with guys who really you can translate the sound that's in your brain and put it into the speakers. It's just like, it's so fulfilling, and I can't say enough good things about them and the team that worked on the record. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you can tell just in your voice and your face that it was a really, really great experience for you. And I love that.
It was, yeah.
So just circling back to your 40th birthday for a moment there. 40th, they're a decent milestone for anyone, but I imagine there's an even bigger sense of accomplishment or perhaps gratitude when you've been through illness like you had a few years ago.
I mean, there is. I think it's funny because I've never really been a guy who cares about getting older, right? I'm not one of these people that thinks too much on birthdays. I mean, I like to throw a good party, so I've definitely I'm all for throwing a good birthday party, but I do think that 40 hit me a little bit different, right? You're more aware, obviously, of just the enormity of life, right? And I think just the breadth of experiences that I've had in these first 40 years of my life, it makes me very grateful for the fact that I'm still able to make music on a high level professionally and still tour the world. Like, that's a dream, and to have done it in 3 projects. And then, yeah, of course, like, realizing that at 22, it could have very easily, that could have been the end for me, and I've lived almost twice, I've almost lived twice as long since that moment. And there is there is a deep sense of gratitude, but there's also a real, I think a depth of appreciation and love for the people that have stuck with me through it all. Right. My wife and my family and my bandmates, these guys, to have something corporate guys on that stage, and 3/4 of the original lineup of Jack's Mannequin, and so many of our friends that I've known, friends that I've been close with since high school, it really did sort of hammer home just how lucky I am that I have such an amazing, like, tight knit group of wonderful human beings around me, that don't suffer fools. They don't put up with my bullshit. You know what I mean? They tell me the truth, and we're there for each other. And it's like, these are people that have been in my life for most of my life now. And I got to do that all on stage in front of the audience that, was the first audience that supported, my music when I was a teenager, so it's a good one. I'm glad you have this one coming up. I think you should. I hope you're excited for it, because it really is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it did make me wonder as well that, in terms of doing music as a career, did your experience with leukemia change your approach or appreciation for doing music as a career? I mean, I'm always a great believer in music, like in the power of music to carry you through darker times. But I've also been fortunate enough never to have to face mortality, in the way that sort of diagnosis would bring about. So I guess what I'm asking is, did that journey strengthen your connection to music? And I think I already know the answer to this just based on the way you've spoken already. But I sort of, it made me wonder as well, did it also, make you consider how fickle some of these endeavors can be?
Well, I think, look, there's so many phases of that. I mean, I could answer that question 100 different ways at different parts of the journey, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there was a time when it really complicated my relationship to music. I think there was a lot, coming up against something that massive, right? Where all of a sudden everything gets stripped away and you really just have to fight for your life, right? That is like, I stress to people, like, that is about the purest form of living you can do, right? All of a sudden, the only thing that matters is not dying, right? And making sure your relationships are right and that you're at peace. And so there's a lot of peace that came with that in the aftermath of my recovery, when I started kind of coming back into the world and back into my body, there was a lot of, I struggle with my confidence. The some of the things that make it essential to be a writer and to a performer and all of those things, because I'd come up against this life and death thing, all of a sudden every decision became life and death, right? And so I would sit down at a piano and I would start the process that I'd always started for years, where it was like, and a song kind of comes to you and you go. Only for a while, there was this thing that would happen where I'd be like, well, is this good? And I would start second guessing myself. So it was tricky, because in the early stages, it really was the music in a lot of senses that got me back. Knowing that I had this record and everything in transit that I loved so dearly and wanted people to hear, I was like, I'm going to live to play this music, and it really did carry me through in a huge way. Making the follow-up to that record was one of the hardest experiences of my whole life, though, because all of a sudden I'd seen this major thing and I was like, well, how do I write pop songs about that? You know what I mean? Like, how do you talk about that? And that lasted for a while. Making records was tough for a while. And I think that's part of the reason I wound down Jack's Mannequin, because I wanted to re-establish my sort of love for music free of my cancer. You know what I mean? And I wanted to start a new chapter of life that wasn't really about having been sick. I would still be this person that went through that, but and it really did give me this, and so I know it's a complicated answer, but I think the bigger thing I learned is, like, music is just in me. It's a part of me. And even when I have a tricky sort of relationship with it, it's like any relationship, right? You have to put the time in. You have to, like, if it matters and you want to keep it alive, then you have to figure out what isn't working and work on yourself and change your process. And that's what this wilderness thing has been totally about. It's like, oh, you're having a hard time writing at the piano today? Okay, we'll go write in a cabin with a homie, or you don't like that sound. You feel like you made that sound before. Go work with a dance producer and hear that song in a completely different way. And I think that's why it's like, it's really about the adventure. I think at this point, it's like, let the creative be, be the thing that keeps me excited about doing it, and it has carried me through a whole lot. That's for sure.
I love how you seem to do that dance between what's yours creatively and what needs the touch of somebody else. The way that you say, like, because there's so many people that can be so introspective with their music, and it's like, this is mine, this is what I've created, no one else is going to get it. And and just have this ownership over it, which works for some people, and it doesn't necessarily work for others. But I love it how you seem to have this really lovely middle ground between what you've created and how other people can interlace and riff off, things that you've done, and just garnish it with, something a little bit not better, but just improvements.
Well, I think too, it takes time. I think getting, more years under my belt and more experiences in the studio and writing more songs, I think as a kid, I was very territorial, right? I mean, even though I was in bands, it was like we would fight with each other over our ideas being heard, and that was a part of the push and pull of being in a band. And it could create really positive outcomes for the record. But I think what I've realized over time is like I have a natural thing inside of me that if a song doesn't come out, if I'm not feeling something, if it doesn't hit me like a song that I've worked on and move me, I'm not going to put it out, right? So and that's just an internal like mechanism that says like it's not totally true to you. This isn't your voice, or this isn't it is just you didn't figure it out, don't put that out. And so I think knowing that I have that in me and that I have the guts to say I don't care if you like it, like it doesn't speak to me, it's given me a lot of freedom to stretch out and say, well, cool, why don't we just pursue the weirdest, wildest, most out there kind of version of a production or idea, knowing full well that if it doesn't get there, you can either work on it until it does, or you can walk away, And so it is a freedom that allows me to say like, okay, let's experiment. And it's in the experimenting that sometimes you don't get there the first time, but you find these threads of things that you are excited about, and then you chase those down,
Yeah, for sure. And it's obviously a testament to you as a musician, because you're still here all these years later. It's
I'm
working.
the cockroach. I'm the cockroach of alternative rock and roll. Yeah, I'm never. You're gonna be stuck with me until I'm no longer on this planet.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there that are not going to complain about that.
Well, it's certainly not me. I have no other skill set. So this is this is how I have to feed my family till the end. So please keep coming to the shows.
I do like to wrap up with like a bit of a fun question. Now, because I'm just taking like a little play on words with your in the wilderness. You have been exiled into the wilderness to live the rest of your life. You can take one living being, human or animal, with you for company. You can take one kind of food to consume for the rest of your days, and you can take one luxury item. So what's going into the wilderness with you?
Wow. You're gonna make me pick between my wife and my daughter, which is already we're off to a rough start on this one. But seeing as my daughter will fare well on her own, I'm gonna pick Kelly because she's my person, she's my soulmate, So I'll go with my wife. Food. Now this is a very tricky one, because I mean I would probably just say give me like the best like pasta dish on earth, but I have a feeling it'd be a good way to kill myself on the after a while. Yeah, it would not be a very so I'm gonna go with something like gosh, one food that I could eat for the rest of my life. I mean, whatever. Let's just pretend that in this fictional place that it's not going to kill me. I'm gonna get a nice pizza. Let's just get quality pizza. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
And then the last one was one luxury item. Huh. I mean, I is it a desert island? Are there waves around? Like, could I bring a surfboard? Like, what's the deal here?
I was actually going to I was going to go off to a side question and ask what kind of wilderness would you choose to disappear into?
Oh,
So that's
yeah. So I mean, it's one of two. It's either I'm gonna go with the beach just because I just the way I need to be near water. So
yeah,
I'm gonna be near the water. I'm gonna bring and I'm gonna bring a surfboard and hope that there are
yeah,
good
cool.
waves there with me.
You know what? I totally picked you as a tropical island kind of guy too.
I it's like I've gotten really like I like the jungle a lot too. This has become kind of a secondary thing. Like I went to Bali years ago and just fell in love with Ubud, and being out in the jungle like really moved me. And but I as long as it's extreme, I'm really into it. Like like I love the desert. Joshua Tree is up there for me. But the ocean is my home, and I've chosen it and it's been good to me. So I think I would have to go there for sure.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I didn't really think you were gonna shack up in an igloo on a,
No.
desolate, icy tundra or something like
One
that.
thing you'll find about me is I hate being cold. It is my number one least favorite state of being.
We have that in common because I often say to people, I think I was some form of reptile in a past life because if I'm cold, I just cease to function. I need
No.
sun and warmth and I'm good to go. So you've picked a really good time of year to come over to Australia too because we're in our summer right now. So
I'm so excited.
yeah.
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 I'm gonna try and I'm gonna like blow up my Instagram, see if there's anybody in Brisbane who wants to take me surfing when I land out there.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm sure someone
Yeah.
will put the call out on this interview as well.
Yeah,
Anyone
sounds good.
anyone
Yeah.
listening?
No, just know that I'm mediocre, and I don't surf a board larger than 8 feet. So don't take me to some place that I'm gonna get killed. But yes, I'm in.
You're coming to Australia, right? Like it's all of the things kill you.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Like if I die on a wave, I'm okay with that. I just got back from Nicaragua. We spent a week out there and it was like just life changing, just 6 hours in the water a day. Like it was incredible. So if I die because I'm jet lagged and I'm surfing with a fan in Brisbane, at least it's a kind of a good end to my story, you know?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool way to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely more uplifting than many other options.
Yeah, but I'm gonna just try and live at least to get through the tour because I haven't gotten to play out there in a long time.
Yep.
So let's make it all the way through the Sydney show, and then we'll talk about what happens next.
Please do that. Yeah, this is taking a dark turn.
Sorry. Well, at least, I mean, whether you broadcast the video or not, you can tell I'm smiling. This is all we're just having fun with
It's
this.
just like, how many ways can Andrew McMahon die in Australia?
Yeah, I mean that's the question you need to ask everybody at the end of the interview. You guys, we can pitch the best ideas, and we'll make a YouTube short about it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, look, thank you so much for taking your time to speak with me this evening. And we are looking forward to having you in Australia, albeit for a very short and very, zippy little period of time. But yeah.
We'll try and make the shows long, so at least we'll feel like we'll get good time together.
Hell yeah, sounds great.
All right, have a great day. Thank you so much.
No worries. Take care, Andrew. So you can catch Andrew during his extremely whirlwind tour of Australia, starting in Brisbane on February the 8th at the Triffid. He's then going to Melbourne on Feb 9th, going to be playing at 170 Russell, and then zipping back up to Sydney on Feb 10th at the Factory Theatre. And the call has been put out there. If any fans want to take him surfing, go for your life, but just maybe don't kill him, especially because he has to zip back home to his daughter's birthday. I wanna risk it all. I'm not afraid to fly.